we are in the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking about the most important and pressing topic of today, and that's the future of work. And I'm delighted that I'm accompanied by two experts. Stephen, who works with the Office for Artificial Intelligence in the UK government, and my colleague Fernando, who leads our artificial intelligence business for the UK. So we will have a condensed, precise, targeted, clear perspective on what artificial intelligence means for the future of work from the perspective of one of the most innovative governments in the world. I can say that as a German. And then from Fernando, who works intensively with many of our clients, particularly in the financial services sector, to inform us. So let me first set the stage a little bit. So all of you might have heard all those alarmist studies about 47% of US jobs being susceptible to automation. That was formulated by two professors actually from Oxford University, and just lately the OECD stating that in OECD countries it would be an average 14%, 12% in the UK, 33% in Slovakia, 6% in Norway. So a lot of numbers sort of are churning around. So, but if you look at the statistics of employment, what do you see? Yeah, you see that unemployment is stalling, and in some countries, for example, my country, unemployment rates are at a critical low. So we have people do not find talent. There seem to be not enough workers for the work. At the same time, we are seeing inequality emerging. So the question at hand probably at the moment is not so much about the number, but the quality of work that we are having. And this is one of the questions that I will be discussing with our experts here. The second one, and this sort of fair here is testament to that, is that there's a huge interest in governments and in business in artificial intelligence. So investments are soaring, they are increasing. There is even a country that has a minister for artificial intelligence. Countries are benchmarking themselves against the number of startups that they have, so on and so forth. At the same time, we did a survey in 10 countries with leaders in companies. Only 3% want to invest more in their people. That's a big disconnect. We all know that the value of technology comes from adoption. So what can governments, what can business do to better adopt technology to get the value from their investment and to have a responsible and ethical perspective on contributing to their country and sort of safeguarding their employees. And last but not least, another interesting thing that we see is that many CXOs, leaders in companies, have a very conservative or pessimistic view on the ability of their workforce to adapt to the new age. In our survey that I just mentioned, we figured that only one quarter of business leaders think that their workforce is ready. But we also asked the workers, 14,000 of them, which is representative. And they are starting to get really impatient with their companies not embracing what they understand is the basis for their relevance in the labor market. So lots going on, sort of statistics, models, numbers, investments. So the world of AI at the moment requires a little bit of analysis, understanding, and structure. So Stephen, I would like to start with you. What is the UK government doing to enhance the collaboration between government institutions and addressing the skill agenda, not only on the side of the employees, but also the employers?
Well, thank you for that intro. I think one of the things that we're doing is the organisation that I am part of. We are setting up the joint Office for Artificial Intelligence to do exactly that kind of bringing together of organisations. Last year there was a review of artificial intelligence by Wendy Hall and Jerome Pesenti, and that made lots of different recommendations. For example, that the Alan Turing Institute should be the National Institute for AI. We are doing that at the moment. We are joining up with lots of different organisations, for example, with the Information Commissioner's Office. I'm setting up a new organisation called the Centre for Data Ethics and Innovation. So my Office for Artificial Intelligence is kind of looking at better supporting artificial intelligence in the UK. Centre for Data Ethics and Innovation is talking about the kind of impacts of AI on trust, on transparency and that kind of thing. So we are setting up new organisations to do this kind of thing, and it can be sort of too many organisations, it can be quite confusing. But once that has kind of bedded down, I think that's the kind of coordination between government departments that it is that we're trying to produce. And one of the things that we've been thinking about quite a lot is, like has been said elsewhere in this conference, artificial intelligence is less a kind of a particular event, and it's more like a technology like electricity that's going to affect absolutely everybody. So one of the things that we need to do, and we need your help here, is to get AI out of these kinds of conversations, which are very important, and out into other conversations where they might not be generally considered, perhaps in the creative industries or in sport or elsewhere, because AI can help absolutely everybody do the things that they are already doing better. So we're trying to do that within government, getting other government departments to think about AI in a way that they perhaps weren't before. The Prime Minister announced just a few weeks ago a new goal, a new mission in using artificial intelligence in the healthcare sector. And that was a very ambitious goal of, I think it was 22,000 deaths that it was trying to prevent. So that's the kind of impact that AI can have elsewhere that we're trying to kind of replicate all around government departments, get everybody to be thinking about it themselves, like electricity, like the internet. How do they use AI to make improvements in their sectors, and then go out and talk to industry bodies themselves. And an example of one of the things that we need to start doing is on regulation. So lots of times we get calls for regulation. You've got to regulate AI, you've got to do something about this, regulate data. And our general view at the moment is to not create a new regulator and to not be trying to kind of come down from on high and regulate AI, but to work with existing regulators to so that they can understand the impact that AI is going to have on their sectors and build up from the ground that level of understanding and knowledge so that their expertise can be and understanding of AI can help grow their sectors even more.
Are you sort of confident that the level of understanding of the impact is at a level where regulation is the right answer, or do you think it's still?
No, I don't think regulation is necessarily the answer, and we're not just about to kind of pounce and come up with new regulations. One of the things that we're trying to do is understand what people think is the best way to regulate. So one of the things that's been mentioned is Google came out last week with a set of AI principles. What can we do to sort of help generate that, to help other companies that perhaps don't have the resources of the large companies who perhaps are thinking to themselves, this isn't something that we can kind of think about ourselves, the SMEs, the medium-sized businesses. So what is it that we can do to help get those kind of messages out there and say, because it's about confidence from the public, but also confidence from business. If businesses are happy to explore use of AI in their work, even if it seemed like it's got nothing to do with them, then that's something that can really help boost UK growth. Not everyone will know everything that they need to know in order to do it, but once they've got the confidence to do it and they know where to go, then that will really help boost UK productivity in the kind of the long tail of the bulk of companies in the UK.
So, Fernando, how confident are your clients in adapting artificial intelligence, and do you see them right away sort of smartly navigating at the intersection of human-machine, having skilling in mind when they integrate artificial intelligence?
We've made a great point about the fact that it's a little bit like electricity, right? So I think most of customers are sitting there thinking, what is this electricity thing anyway, and how do I use it? with the added complexity that this new technology is a lot of technologies, not one, right? It's a plethora of things. So, and there's a lot of hype around it as well, as we all know. So customers are trying to figure out what are the use cases that are actually going to make a difference, and how do I build value based on those use cases. But we're also in the you can make this stuff up category as well. So, you know, what is a use case? What do I touch? What do I don't? So they're starting to pick up on simple things where technology is probably already tested itself well, call center, robotics, and some of these things that they've already seen. And getting braver and braver as they get better at those technologies. But I think one of the fundamental issues I see is, certainly as it relates to workforce, is that you can't possibly buy all the skills in all the spectrum that is AI. Then you don't know where to start. You've got a bit of everything, where do you start? And as it relates to regulators, I've got a slight perpendicular view, which is that industry needs to help the regulator, because the industry is probably much more ahead than the regulator, certainly in finance. And I'll give you my favorite example, which is targeting. This technology is great at targeting. If it targets me because I'm a bald 40-year-old that likes classic cars and it gives me great insurance for my classic car, is it biased against you because you're not those things, but you like classic cars?
I'm German, you know. I like cars a lot.
There you go. So you're already my friend. But the point is there a bias there, or is there just natural segmentation? And companies are slightly, at the moment, unsure. If I target really well, am I biasing in a way that society is going to reject it? And society's become very sensitive. Quite rightly so, but it is a sensitivity there. So I think the regulator may need to help jump in. Regulators, you're quite right, not one, but whichever number, may need to jump in to say what is okay, what isn't okay, what are the guardrails? You know, what are the guardrails where, you know, as long as you follow this path, you're in great shape. So customers are evolving. They are doing less than the hype suggests. They're working on less use cases that bring clearer value, that are less gray, that are very clearly defined, and they're building capability little by little to match. But it certainly doesn't match the hyperbole that we see around us. You know, if we follow the hyperbole, it feels like every company out there has got a massive component of artificial intelligence. They don't. It's a smaller pockets working together on bigger use cases. That's where it is. And the regulator sits there actually very actively thinking, how do I help? But not quite doing it. Does that make sense?
So do you feel that companies could be more sort of open to risks in trying out new things? And to what extent do you think that consumers are pushing that?
For me, it's two strands. So yes. So companies have spent a lot of money in the last 2 years experimenting, and that's it. They're done. That era is gone. The experimentation. We've had our fun. No more fun. Let's find some value, right? So that's on one side. Consumers do keep on pushing, and this whole liquid expectations, where you want the same experience you have on that you will have on, and all these expectations flow through, are correct. So liquid expectations will push, but now is the time of people making more laser-guided commitments to stories that the narratives that they're going to push to the consumers. The many experiments to see what sticks. The money's been spent. That's at least my experience from the financial services. The money's been spent. Now let's focus on anti-money laundering. Let's focus on, know your customer. Let's focus on how can we make those core things better. Yeah?
How do the two of you see sort of the best dialogue between government and business take place in order to address sort of the opportunity, the growth, the productivity, but on the other hand also the inclusion and sort of the safeguarding of people's fears around jobs? So what would be a format that you think would work?
You want to take a stab?
Matt Hancock, my Secretary of State, was on stage earlier on, and he was talking about how very soon we're going to launch a consultation on exactly these kinds of issues. What issues should this Centre for Data Ethics that I talked about before, what issues should they be looking at? And so we'd welcome any kind of responses, members of the public, businesses, third sector organisations, but that kind of perhaps one-way dialogue, but these kinds of fora are really important to be able to hear what other people are saying. So interested if there's any other kind of questions from the audience, or I'll be around later on. So that kind of discussion, so that we can understand what concerns people have. But we also do see that there's quite a lot of advantage for the UK. This could be the kind of thing that the UK is good at. So one of the things, another sort of somewhat similar situation that the UK is good at is our legal framework. Lots of people come to the UK because they know that there's a trusted legal framework. They know that the courts work. They know that the system is very well established and is well trusted. And that word trust, I think, is really key. If you have a framework which is trusted, then that's something that brings business to the UK and is a positive factor. That can be true for artificial intelligence as well, and data technologies. It's not just AI itself. So if the UK could become well known for, the example I give is a toy manufacturer coming to the UK, it knows that it can start using artificial intelligence in its products because there's a trusted legal framework. That means that it's not going to get sued, but it's going to be protected. There's going to be a process in there to protect them. Then that is a selling point for the UK and a really positive thing. So yeah, I think it's about kind of dialogue and trust.
What's your perspective?
Again, somewhat diagonal, as usual. But my feel is that at a macro level, I think the UK is putting all the right things in place. There's no doubt. And we have the intellectual capacity, the universities, the foundations, and all these things. And quite rightly, the minister is doing a bunch of things that I totally agree with. And it is at that macro level that we will get the changes. Why? Because, and go back to these guardrails. So if you want to go and do artificial intelligence, and you may choose somewhere where you can be totally free of and do whatever you like, and you're going to go somewhere where there's peer groups. You're going to go somewhere where there's clarity, and you're going to go somewhere where there's money. Those are your three basic principles, right? Without those, you're not going to do anything. So we need to set ourselves up. So the peer groups, I think we're creating. I think it's fair to say. The investment is maybe not on par with other countries. Maybe. The willingness is there, maybe not the investment. And but then the idea of clarity is something that we could be groundbreaking in, which is the clarity of, if you come here, this are the things you can do, which means you can run in that direction because you know what good looks like, you know what bad looks like, right? And sometimes having no limits is not the answer for speed and not the answer for value, right? You need to have some clarity, some boundaries, and then you can start knowing within those boundaries that you can create. So.
And that situation is going to change with time as well. So one of the things that we need to keep doing is not just have a kind of, here's a framework, off you go, get it done. But probably the government is going to need to be sort of a little bit sort of one step back, but always there, because new technologies are going to develop, new issues are going to arise. Using technologies in a slightly different sector is going to have a very different impact, and it needs to be adaptable to the particular situation. So if you've got a particular AI or data technology which has an error rate that's very small, so 95%, whatever it is, success rate, that is going to be absolutely fine when it comes to advertising, not so much when it comes to healthcare or security, say. So that is a very different situation that needs to be tailored to that particular sector. And so that's something where the government is always going to have to be involved, and the organisations that we're setting up are designed to do that and to generate that kind of trust and clarity, but which does take time.
Quite. The other thing I would add to that, though, is that it would be interesting to see a mandate from government. I'm looking at you like you're the government, bless you. But you can influence, which is that the government itself takes a chunk of money to invest itself in these solutions that use it for citizens and so on. And I think, again, from an international perspective, we're maybe less. We have a big population. Obviously, we're a major economy, so implementing these things is not always easy. But it's the best place where you can see how these technologies work, how the public adopts them, what good looks like, right? What responsible looks like. And we should do everything possible to adopt these within government, which obviously is the holder of most of the data, right? And obviously serves all of us equally, right?
The example that we had just a few weeks ago with healthcare and diagnostics, obviously that's taking something which is like perhaps the ultimate data set, the NHS, and that was identified and announced as a particular thing that the government can do to help. because it's going to be private sector organizations that actually do the analysis on the government data. But it's also worth pointing out another recommendation that was in the AI review last year. It was talking about data trusts. So this is something that was identified by the reviewers as something that the government could do because the private sector maybe finds it a little bit difficult to share data in a trusted way. And having a data trust, like a legal framework to be able to share data would be really helpful. And that's something where a government was identified as the kind of, the trusted third party, if you like, to set something up that can then be used between all sorts of different organizations to share data, to be able to develop AI and data technologies. And again, something that the UK can be good at.
This is probably prudent to say because obviously we know so little about what the skills of the future actually are, so that now sort of setting up sort of one-size-fits-all training programs or being very focused about it is probably not the right answer. But learn while you go. I think that's a perfect approach. So on that positive note, I would like to thank all of you to sit with us in the sauna here for 30 minutes. So please take the liberty to take as much bottles of water as you want for being here with us. And I think we will all be around for the next couple of minutes if you are interested to have sort of a discussion with any of us. Thank you very much for coming and enjoy the rest of the fair.